Good evening. My name is Noah. I'm the community shlicha at the Milwaukee Jewish Federation. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for each and every one of you for being here tonight. We stand here together again with mixed emotions. And it seems that this abnormal feeling have become the new normal. Yet, even though we've gathered recently under similar circumstances too many times, we do so again, making it clear together. We reject this feeling of this new normal. We will not accept this new normal. We are grateful to have friends with us tonight. We welcome Randy Neal, Senior Director of Engagement from Christians United for Israel, who came to town to attend an event last night in support of Israel. Thank you. We have gathered to mourn together the fate of Oded Lifshitz, Shiri Bibas, and her children, Ariel and Kfir Bibas, whose bodies were returned to Israel last Thursday and Saturday. Oded Lifshitz, 85 years old at the time of his murder, was a father of 4, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. He enjoyed playing the piano and looking after his cacti garden. He was one of the founders of Kibbutz Nir Oz in 1955 and served in various leadership roles throughout the years. He was a journalist and an activist. Oded believed in the power of criticism to shape organized and righteous societies and was not afraid to express his views on both social and political issues. In 1972, he defended Bedouins who were expelled from the Sinai Peninsula by the Israeli authorities, and a decade later was one of the first journalists to report on the Sabra and Shatila massacres. More recently, he took part in Road for Recovery initiative, driving Palestinians to hospitals in Israel to receive medical treatment on a weekly basis. The cacti collection that he nurtured in his garden for years is now being cared for by the children of Kibbutz Nir Oz, his family, and volunteers who are dedicated to Oded's life's work. Like Oded, Shiri Bibas' identity was rooted in the soil of Kibbutz Nir Oz, where she was born and raised. It was also there that she chose to start a family with Yarden and contributed to nurturing the younger generation as a dedicated and beloved teacher. In the long months since October 7th, Shiri and her children have become a symbol for the fight to bring back the hostages, a symbol for childlike innocence in the face of the brutality of the events of October 7th, and a symbol of the hope that we all held in the face of uncertainty. Ariel Bibas, only 4 years old, whose flaming orange hair matched his bubbly personality, was fun and obsessed with Batman. Ariel was a loving older brother to Kfir. Kfir was only 9 months old and was described by his relatives as being laid back. He shared wide smiles with those surrounding him. He was only 9 months old. Yarden, the father, who had recently returned from captivity, was given only a few days of hope before receiving the unbearable news. He asked that the world know and remember that his family was brutally murdered after being kidnapped from their home. Alongside this painful memory, we will also remember the precious lives they lived together. Yehi Zichram Baruch. May their memory be a blessing.
As you entered this evening, we asked people to share their thoughts and feelings at this moment. Here are a few things people shared. I am heartbroken and furious. I keep waiting for the outcry from the world, but there's just silence. Tonight, I'm filled with sadness and frustration. The world is broken, and it's up to us to help set it on a positive course through action and prayer. His peace to be together. When I learned of the youngest hostage taken, 9-month-old Kfir Bibas, I, like many others, saw in him my own children, especially my toddler son. I imagined his safe return and all the ways Kfir might live out his childhood in joy and happiness, picturing him doing many of my favorite activities in Israel, including several I did with my oldest daughter on our trip to Israel when she was young, my favorite being collecting shells on the shore of Tel Aviv. I put these thoughts together in song with the help of my dear friend Liran Gerasi, weaving together references to Israeli song and literature, Jewish liturgy, and the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. I will point out just one before I begin. There's a famous Hebrew art song called Shnei Michtavim, 2 letters, by the Zionist composer Yoel Engel, in which a mother writes to her son, a young man who has moved away, Bo habaita ben Chaviv, come back home, my dear son. In the chorus of my song, I write, invite you to sing along, Bo habaita Kfir Chaviv, come back home, dear Kfir. In Engel's song, the son does not return home. I had hoped my song would have a different ending. כשתחזור כפיר אני אתן לך חיבוק חמים, אתן לך תפיל הברוד בתמונתך שווה כיכר החטופים, אטוף אותך בשמיכה רפה שיהיה לך נעים, וכשאתה רעב אביא לך משהו טעים, נדלג בשלוליות ונצחק בקול גדול, כמו שרה כשהיא קיבלה בשורה ששינתה הכל, נטייל בתוך היער ונשתול לנו שמץ, וקנה לך בלון אדום שלעולם לא יתפוצץ, אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב, בוא הביתה כפיר חביב, יותר מדי זמן כולנו מחכים, אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב. נלך בחוף הים לרבוע, להסתכל על הפרחים, תרד על ים המלח, ושם תוכל לטוס מהמקום הכי נמוך, כמו ציפור תוכל לעוף. אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב, בוא הביתה כפיר חביב. יותר מדי זמן כולנו מחכים, אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב. לקבל אותך כל החברים, בזרועות פתוחות, נשים את הצרות בצד ונצא אז עם קולות. נחליט אהב לכל המדינה ותופפה המון, ניכנס ביחד ויאז נשיר ברון. אלוהים שבשמיים, אנא הגשם את החלום, יגאל לנה ופרוס עלינו ועליו סוכת שלום. קבל ושיר מנה, רק תפילה אחת שלי, ותן לי כפיר לגדול להיות ארי. אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב, בוא הביתה כפיר חביב. יותר מדי זמן כולנו מחכים, אז בוא הביתה, אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב, בוא הביתה כפיר חביב. יותר מדי זמן כולנו מחכים, אז בוא הביתה כפיר חביב.
I walked into this space on Friday evening to welcome Shabbat, a Shabbat that we all so desperately needed. We had done a more extended Kabbalat Shabbat, helping all of us to transition from the difficulty of the week that was into the peace that we all craved over Shabbat. As I turned around to face east for Baruch Hu, I looked up, as I often do. Our Ner Tamid behind me over the ark has all the colors in those bulbs. Generally, it is set to shades of pink, and it has been for as long as I can remember. I looked up as we called ourselves to prayer, and there it was, as you see now, glowing orange. Nobody has touched it. We don't know how the color changed, but it did. The weight of our grief as a people is immense, and even so, this past week felt even heavier. Since October 7th of 2023, more than 500 days ago, we've been grieving the loss of so many innocent people. We've been grieving the loss of those we've long considered allies. We've been grieving our sense of security and Israel's military invincibility. These past weeks, though, our grief intensified once again, as hostages have been released, only to come home and learn that their loved ones weren't there to greet them. It has felt like those dark days of October all over again, remembering that we are missing not only the remaining 63 hostages, but the 1,200 or so who were killed that day. Instead of those videos of happy tears, of parents reuniting with children, siblings, spouses, there were reunions that were covered with a veil of ongoing loss. The family members who weren't present for that reunion looming large. And then this past week, even as Israel tried to prepare all of us for the death of the Bibas family, the circumstances surrounding their murders, the body of Shiri, and the confusion, has been more than a gut punch. But it has at times felt like our entire world closing in on us yet again. I think back to a few years ago when there was that series of bomb threats at the JCC. My own children then were at Ganami at the JCC, and they were not so different in age from the Bibas children when they were kidnapped. And it's beyond horrifying. I remember how tightly I hugged them that night after that first threat. I remember the text messages that went back and forth between all the parents of my kids' peers. I remember the extra hugs I sent them off with the next day when it felt just a little harder to say goodbye, even as I knew they were really too little to comprehend any of it. I compare my own feelings then to that image of Shiri Bibas's face, frozen in terror, the last image we have of her in this world, holding so tightly to her children, not knowing yet the horrors that still lay ahead of all of them. As I met with a bar mitzvah student this past week, we talked about Holocaust remembrance, where what we do is we go to the Yad Vashem database of names. We choose a child who died in the Shoah that they can remember during their B'nai Mitzvah service, a child who never had a chance to become B'nai Mitzvah. And as we scrolled through the names of those who were killed in the Holocaust, all I could think of in that moment was Ariel and Kafir. When we look at the Hebrew calendar, somehow inexplicably this Shabbat is Rosh Chodesh Adar, when the Talmud tells us our joy should increase. It seems impossible to turn from mourning into joy, from anger to celebration, from sadness to finding space for happiness once again. And yet, as our people have done for all the generations, we will find a way to move forward. We look for bright spots, maybe orange spots of hope, to help us remember and give meaning to our struggles. And we take one step after another, moving from the darkness into the light. This month of Adar, we'll look to the story of Esther, of our people overcoming evil and living our lives freely and openly. We will think of Esther's courage and Mordechai's faith and our people's resilience. Today, we mourn and we seethe and we cry. And we know that eventually joy will return, that as a community we will continue to heal, that we will dance again.
What do we do now? Some of us are still crying. Some of us are praying. And some of us want to know, what can I do right now? with the pain, the horror, the tragedy, the sadness. If you're still in a place of tears or of prayer, I'm not asking you to change. I don't have the chutzpah to ask you to be in a different space. For those of you who are in a different space, who want to know, what can I do right now with this energy and this pain? One of the options that Judaism teaches us that we can do to act is to perform a mitzvah. We might understand the mitzvah as an obligation, something God commands us to do. Some of us might understand the mitzvah as a righteous act. Some of us might understand the mitzvah as a good deed. It's something within our capacity. We can perform a mitzvah. We can do something to make this world a better place, to combat the horrors and evil with something even small that's positive and meaningful. We can light Shabbat candles. If we do it every week or if we rarely do it, invite someone else to Shabbat dinner. If there's someone who is ill, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, who's in addiction recovery, visit, give a call. If you see a stranger in the street, run up and be the first to greet them with a smile. Be a little bit kinder to people you know. Reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a while. Bring a little bit more lightness and joy to anyone with whom we come into contact. And when we as Jews perform a mitzvah, we can do it in honor and in memory of someone else. And so, this week when we perform a mitzvah, I invite you to join me in dedicating them to Oded, to Shiri, to Ariel, and to Kfir. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. And may they continue to inspire each of us to do a little bit better in the world in which we live. I now also have the privilege of sharing some more of your thoughts and your reflections. Our thoughts, prayers, and raw emotions are with all in Israel, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and around the world as we ride this emotional roller coaster. When will it stop? Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. And we have and will survive even this. I am beyond disgusted and heartbroken after hearing about the Bibas family. Now, more than ever, we need to stick together, to protect each other, to be there for each other. May everyone's memories be for a blessing and a revolution. Am Yisrael Chai.
שמיים בארץ, הייתן לעמוד רגליך, אל ינום שומריך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומריך, אדוני צלך, היד ימינך, יומם השמש לא ירקך, וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמורך מגבורה, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר המעלות, אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעבדותיי, עושי שמיים בארץ, הייתן לעמוד רגליך, אל ינום שומריך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומריך, אדוני צלך, היד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יכך, וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמורך בגבורה, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד
When we say Kaddish, we are above all affirming life. When we look at the words themselves, they're optimistic, reminding us that even when things are hard and dark and scary, there's light ahead. Rabbi Hannah Yerushalmi wrote this poem. During this moment of silence, bring me the grief of my people, centuries born and centuries old, and let it inspire me to still love the world. Connect me with fleeting grace and the prophet's power to keep opening up my soul even when it is seared with loss. Bring me the courage to quiet my desperate need for answers by letting hearts touch hearts on some imagined coastal plain. Connect me with the calm of a desert valley after a surprise flash flood, the rich pause between musical notes, or the serenity of a Jerusalem street on Shabbat. Bring me the tentative hope in a room before a newborn's cry. Connect me to the frail, silvery thread that links me to the humanity of my neighbor. During this moment of silence, though there are horrors all around, in spite of everything that directs me not, let the more loving one be me. Oded Leifshitz will be buried tomorrow, And Ariel, Kfir, and Shiri Bibas will be buried on Wednesday. As we in a moment say Kaddish, we remember the innocent souls who were taken before they had a chance to grow up, to live their dreams, to experience peace. We pause for a moment of quiet to remember.
As we continue together, please join us if you would like, whatever your custom is, to stand there.
The words are on the screen. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divarach irutei v'amlich malchutei, B'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam u'lamei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudsha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world, to which we say, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
I'm Tzipi Altman-Schaefer. I'm the Vice President of Jewish Communal Life and Learning at Milwaukee Jewish Federation. Here are a few more thoughts that were shared by people tonight. May the families of all those who were taken know comfort and strength. May the memory of those beautiful children inspire the world to be more compassionate and have a deeper care for the innocence of the world. And may we all be comforted among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. The entire Jewish world clung to the hope that Shiri, Kfir, Ariel, and Yarden would come home safely. Our hearts are all broken, and we all cry for Yarden and his parents. We will not let Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir's deaths be forgotten. We will not allow anti-Semites to attempt to justify their murders. We will come together and ensure that they are never forgotten. We will be more vocal than ever as we continue to fight for the preservation of our homeland. Am Yisrael Chai. For Ariel, Kfir, and Oded, we must repair the world and shine a light to guide all souls away from hate and towards love. One of our goals tonight was to give people a chance to gather and share their feelings in a variety of ways. We have prayed together, we have sung, we have shared our thoughts and feelings. In a few moments, we will join together in the Star-Spangled Banner and Hatikva. Afterwards, we will have two more opportunities to express ourselves. First, in the community hall behind you, you will find empty pots and seeds. Less than 2 weeks ago, we celebrated Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees, the time when the almond trees start to bloom in Israel. Amid the darkness and cold winter, we take inspiration from spring in Israel to help us look forward to warmer and brighter days ahead. Another source of hope and inspiration comes from the strength and resilience of the hostages. We hope that their reunions with their loved ones have been sweet and brought them comfort and peace. We continue to pray that the rest of the hostages will return home safely and without delay. Today, as we mourn together with Jews in Israel and around the world, we need to hold on to the hope and light of Tu B'Shvat. Please plant seeds in memory of Shiri Bibas, Ariel Bibas, Kfir Bibas, and Oded Lipshitz. Take the pot home, water it, nurture it. Remember those we have lost. Watch the flowers bloom to remind us of our hope for a better future. May their memories be for a blessing. Zichronam Livracha. Second, after the program, Moshe Katz and I will share some other voices. You're welcome to stay in this room and join us in hearing some of what they have to say and discussing it together with us. Now please rise for the anthems.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
So anyone who's interested in staying and learning and discussing a little bit, come sit up in the front row. Let's get together for something happy.
I hope it wasn't misunderstood they're going there instead of here.
I think we gave them two
Okay.
choices.
Great. For those of you who are staying in the room, thank you for sticking around. We want to begin this quickly. I want to start this session off, for those of you who are here, this is a book worth buying. If you don't already have it, I highly recommend buying it. It's called Shiva. It's a book that was a compilation of poems that came out since October 7th. They stopped collecting them in Pesach of 2024. And the compilation is these magnificent, some more powerful than others, but all really, really wonderful poems reflecting on people's thoughts regarding what happened on October 7th. Wonderful publication. It's in Hebrew on one side and English on the other. I highly recommend owning it. It's available online. It's available through different places, but Shiva, really worth getting. I also want to make a special note to the woman who is, one of the women who's behind this is Rachel Korazim. Many of you have learned with Rachel. She's been in Milwaukee multiple times. She is probably one of the greatest educators I've ever had. If you have had a chance of studying her, great. If you have not, she has several things online you can actually go to and learn from. She's really, really special, and oftentimes the best brains behind what's taking place in this book. I also want to share two parts about what we're about to read, because if you didn't know it, it doesn't help to understand where this poem comes from. So the first image I want to give you is that up until, I'm going to say probably from as early times in Israel, through till today, there are death notices that are hung in the neighborhoods where a person once lived. It was an easy way to get out knowledge to the neighborhood that the person had passed. It's done in black and white background, black letters, and it's prominent. It's one of those things that if you know Israeli life, you just see these things. They become literally like the octagon stop sign. It's just simply something that's there. But it's very powerful because when they just pop up, they're literally whitewashed onto spaces wherever you are. So God forbid a person lives on a street, I don't know, 78 Ben Yehuda Street. I don't know if it's a real address or not, but let's say it's 78 Ben Yehuda Street. Within a certain block area around it, these signs will just magically appear that notify the neighbors, Shlomo Pupik has passed away. You should know, and then it will give you information, and it has to be done, by the way. Think about this very quickly, because you bury the person, usually within 24 hours, a person's already buried. So the sign goes up the moment there's knowledge, signs are printed and done. Since the time that we've been able to use radio and television, a new form has been used, and the words are hutam lepersum. It's been cleared for publication. And that hutar lepersum has become the modern day white sign. And followed it, and it's always done after giving notice to the families. That's why it's now cleared for publication. We've had the knowledge, it's just been cleared for publication by letting the families be notified first. It also starts the chills when you think about the writing of this particular piece of poetry. Because by the time you hear the name, the family's already heard. But in today's case of the Bibas family, there was only one person to hear. So when you're reflecting about this particular piece, it becomes that much more powerful to understand the story behind the story behind the story. That we went from having a printed publication that couldn't possibly be done fast enough to a radio or television one that could be done faster, now obviously instantaneously on your iPhone, but never without proper notice to the family. And remember that in the case of the Bibas family, he was given information that his family was still alive while he was in captivity. Cleared for publication. You have the pieces in front of you. Cleared for publication that our hearts are broken in hidden places, in empty rooms. Thousands of sobs are silently choking. Cleared for publication that open season has declared on us. We were plundered in the dark of the most precious of the precious. It is already cleared for publication that the magical shining light of our beloved face, has been extinguished. However, beneath the same soil, a stubborn plant is sprouting, sending roots without end, tightly grasped with love. Another educational moment. In hidden places, and this is where understanding a little bit of our Jewish history is so stunning. And there's a note, I believe, on your text. Hidden places is supposed to be the space that even God has for God to mourn. Because there's a dilemma that any space where God is supposed to be a joyous space. So where does God go when God needs to mourn and God needs to cry? And the answer is in hidden spaces. So in the text here, when it tells us, cleared for publication, that our hearts are broken, and in hidden places, in empty rooms, thousands of sobs are silently choking, is the condition that even God is in when cleared for publication happens. That it's not just us mere mortals that are shaken by this, but that God is as well. I want to share one other piece that you couldn't know because it's not in front of you. But in the book, there are two poems called Cleared for Publication. And they're not the same poem. It's the same title, but not the same poem. And I want to share one particular piece that's taken from the other Cleared for Publication. Cleared for Publication. We can pack up the Chanukiot and put them back in the cabinet. The miracle can't kindle our day's wick, and it's not something worth publicizing. Death climbed through our window, and no Chanukiah we placed on the seam line between home and public domain could block its way. Death is actually sitting in our living rooms on the cold floor, spitefully spinning a dreidel of lead. Two of its faces erased, the remaining ones rattle with every fall. Happened here, happened here. And the two pieces of wonderful power behind this particular prayer is the Chanukiyot are put out in public, right? We put them in a space where the rest of the world can see that we've done so. And I chose to do this in spite of the fact that it wasn't the one we're going to be studying, because here we are in public having this opportunity to learn and to understand better what hutar lepirsum means, cleared for publication is. Just as we are able to thrust this out into the public space, as this gathering we did was a collective type space. But there's something else that's here, that in the later part of the prayer of the poem it says, two of its faces were erased. So on a dreidel, it is Nes Gadol Haya Po. Sham would be what we would say here because it happened there, but in Israel it's Po because it happened here. And the two letters that they erased are Nun and Gimel. And Nun and Gimel are specifically Nes Gadol, a great miracle. Because in the dreidel, it's now and in dreidel, it's now spinning in too many homes. There's no Nes Gadol. There's no great miracle. Utar Pirsum. May their memories be of a great blessing.
So if you turn your paper over, we looked at something very modern. Susie, I think a couple of people don't have. You want to give them, the papers are up here. From something modern to something much more ancient. This is from the Psalms, from Tehillim, from Tehillim. Tehillim are often said during when we're praying for something, often when we're praying for health, when we're praying for healing, for peace, often people will turn to Tehillim. I have seen in the last few years, I've seen WhatsApp used for Tehillim groups, where they're praying for somebody who's unfortunately been in a terrible situation, terrible danger, and they have people saying Tehillim round the clock. They start with the first chapter, and the person puts 1, 2, whichever chapter they're going, and 24 hours a day, there are people saying Tehillim. I was actually with somebody last night who had been in a tragic accident. We didn't think he'd survive. And it's a year later, and he's great, and he's walking, and I went out to dinner with him, and he was talking about how much knowing people were saying these Tehillim meant to him. And when the war started, there was I'm sure many groups, but there was one group I was in Milwaukee that started with Tehillim for Israel. And any time I open up my phone 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, I'm sure, not on Shabbat, there are people saying Tehillim. So that's just a word about Tehillim. This one spoke to me when I tried to find something that would pair up well with the poem we just did. So the divisions I put between the 3 sections, that's me. That's not from the rabbis. It's not from King David, who wrote the Psalms, but you'll see from the discussion questions why. A plea from David when he was in the cave, a prayer. With my voice I cry out to God. With my voice I supplicate to God. I pour out before God my speech. My distress I recite before God. When my spirit enwraps itself upon me, and you know my path, in whichever way I go, they have hidden a snare for me. Looking to the right, I see that no one recognizes me. Escape is lost from me. No one seeks my soul. I cried out to God. I cried out to you, O God. I said, you are my refuge, my lot in the land of the living. Hearken to my cry, for I have become very low. Save me from my pursuers, for they have overpowered me. Take my soul out of confinement to give thanks to your name. Because of me, the righteous will crown you. Because of you, will recompense me. So what I'd like us to do, and all of you are sitting next to someone and near someone. This is pretty good, mostly. If you're not sitting near someone, I'm going to ask you to move and go near someone. You can turn around behind you, in front of you. And I would like you to just discuss these 3 questions at the bottom of the page, because we wanted today to be not just people up here talking at you, but conversation. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'd like you to discuss with somebody near you these 3 questions, and then we're going to come back together and share a little bit about what we learned.